Also cool. Let us know who you're organizing with. We all need to find our community. This is a little part of that community, and hopefully we can learn a little bit from each other today and talk about how we, defend democracy from the folks who are threatening us. Great to see everybody. Gosh, we got folks from all over. We got Wisconsin, we've got Seattle, we've got North Carolina, Ann Arbor, San Francisco, Manhattan. This part of the chat, look, I love this part of the chat because you just get this sense that there is just this broad movement of people that you're not alone, that despite what the fascists, what the authoritarians, what the folks in the White House, what Elon Musk, what congressional Republicans want you to think, they're the minority, y'all. We're the opposition, and the people are on our side, and they're normal, everyday people who are finding a way to fight back and organize through peaceful protesting in their own community. And damn it, we're going to win. That's what we're doing here. We're going to give people a couple more seconds to join, fill up the room, and then we've got a lot of questions to get to. I'm already seeing people know how this works. You're not newbies here. If you are a newbie, just know most of the time that we're going to spend today is going to be on Q&A. We like to take questions. You all vote on the questions. We go through them. But this is a really special one. This is a special one because we've got a big piece of news to share. It's May Day, so we can reflect on all the protests hopefully we've all been going to today, but it's also the day we're going to announce the next big global day of action and do a little bit of a preview of what that looks like before the big national launch next week. So excited to share what our thinking is. Leah, should we get started?
Let's go.
Okay, y'all, we are going to get started. Like I said, I'm going to cover a little bit for the newbies of what we're doing here and welcome you to this movement. I haven't introduced myself yet, and Leah, you haven't introduced yourself. I'm Ezra. I'm one of the co-founders and co-leaders of Indivisible, and
I'm Leah Greenberg. I am the fellow co-founder and co-executive director of Indivisible.
And one thing that we most of the time make a point of saying, but we sometimes forget, and it's very important to say because we are in very close quarters here, and sometimes people are like, why are those co-executive directors sitting so close together? That's weird. It's because we're married and we're talking to you from our room in a little corner of our room. So that's where we're kind of like tightly packed in here. It's totally above board. So I'm actually wearing the shirt that I wore to the May Day protest. We just got back from our local May Day protester. Thanks for the compliment on the guitar. It's a Telecaster. It's indestructible. We bump up against it all the time. But May Day out in downtown DC, curious in the chat, have folks already been to their May Day protests? Ours was awesome.
Are you currently putting on your May Day protest?
Yeah, you could already be out there.
Are you not here today because you are at a May Day protest right now,
It's
maybe on the West Coast? Yes.
Totally possible. Okay, good. On my way, I'm seeing starts at 5 p.m., 4:30, not yet. I love to see that. I love to see that. Okay, good. Your priorities are right. I'm glad that folks are making plans and going or have already been. Over on the East Coast, we've been to ours and rushed back so we could be here with y'all. This is my favorite protest shirt. This was, Leah, what's it come from? Greater Lafayette Indivisible? Yeah. So I wear this just a lot of protests. What does it say? It says, I always forget, it says resist, insist, persist, enlist. That's what we're doing here, y'all. I think I've had this for about 8 years now. We've got a big announcement to make before we get to the Q&A, but also before that big announcement, so stay tuned about the next Global Day of Action. I want to give a big thanks to Meidas. Meidas, this is the first time, as I mentioned earlier, it's the first time we've ever live broadcasted one of these What's the Plan discussions. And this comes at a time when traditional news organizations, I'm looking at you, CBS, ABC News, Washington Post, LA Times, capitulating, cooperating, collapsing in the face of creeping authoritarians. In this moment, it is so damn important to partner with, promote, and support independent media. And Meidas, let me just say, Meidas did an absolutely incredible job covering the April 5th hands-off protests all around the country. And so look, I'm just really excited to be partnering with them today as we talk about the next big day of action. A lot of folks are on the Zoom here. We're talking to people in the chat. People are giving us emojis, which we love to see. And people are asking questions in the Zoom. If you're watching on YouTube or through Meidas, you're not seeing that, but we're going to be answering questions that are coming in on the Zoom. So if you want to get some of the links in the chat and the resources and plug in, you can go to indivisible.org/links and sign up there, or just go to indivisible.org. But great to have all the Meidas folks with us. Let me talk a little bit about what Indivisible is for newbies, because this is a people-powered movement that is constantly growing, and we want new people to join and take on leadership. I mean, that's what this movement is about. So I want to talk about what Indivisible does, what makes us tick, what we believe. At a high level, look, we believe we are living through a constitutional crisis right now, and it's a constitutional crisis that demands action. Trump and MAGA are threatening the very foundations of our democracy. And what we know is that throughout history, there has been no solution to creeping authoritarianism other than massive, broad-based, peaceful organizing with people from all walks of life. That's what works. So if you are here, you're part of this fight. You are part of that fight. Other things we believe, Leo. We believe that if Republicans had 1 ounce of integrity, they'd switch parties right now. I believe in Democrats who have spines and fight back. We are not an arm of the Democratic Party. We believe in supporting them when they're fighting back the right way. We also believe in criticizing them loudly when they cave or surrender or decline to fight. That's what we do. Fundamental thing I believe in, that Indivisibles believe in, we believe in a constitutional republic. We do not consent to fascism. Trump, Musk, congressional Republicans, they might not like it, but a constitutional republic has no kings. Has no kings. Keep in mind, no kings. That's a sign of things to come. The power in a constitutional republic flows from the people. That's where it flows from, and it flows from the people to thousands of elected officials, from dog catcher to president. Another basic thing that Indivisibles believe, we believe that courage is contagious. Every time one person takes a step forward in defense of our democracy, there are 100 eyes on that person. 100 eyes watch, 100 feet follow. That means
maybe 200 feet.
Maybe 200, yeah, maybe 200 feet. Yeah. And what that means is, despite what Musk and Trump and the congressional Republicans, despite their scare tactics against Leah and myself personally, or against Indivisible broadly, we're not backing down, y'all. We are not backing down. And for us, that's particularly easy to do because we know that we are not the leaders of this movement. We're talking to you right now. This movement isn't about Leah and me. That's not what it's about. This movement is led by thousands and thousands of local Indivisible leaders spread across the country, in blue states, red states, purple states. They are leading thousands of local Indivisible groups all over the country. And we believe in that. We believe in building people power because we think politics is too important to be left to the politicians. So what we do, we train and support normal everyday people to build their own local volunteer-led groups. That's how we build and aggregate power. That's what we do from the local level to the national level. Politicians, they don't care about your tweets, but they do fear peaceful, organized groups of constituents who might endanger their political career. So that when we talk about power, when we talk about constituent power, that's the power we're building and using. And that word power is really important. If you're new to organizing circles, you might hear the word power, it can almost take on a mystical quality, like power, that's the big thing. Let me simplify it. Power for Indivisible is a very practical thing. Power is nothing more than the ability to make someone or some institution do something they wouldn't otherwise do. That's it. That's all it is. And Indivisible, we believe that the way to build power in this country is locally, through locally led Indivisible groups. We're not just here to consume politics. We're here to be active political participants. And that means building and wielding this local power to change what happens in this world we inhabit together. Okay, last thing I'll say before I welcome some new people to our group. You are coming, if you're brand new here, during a time of just incredible, massive growth for the pro-democracy movement in this country. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Look, this movement is built on new people coming in, starting or joining local groups and taking a role in leading the defense of our democracy. There are right now, in this moment, more than 2,000 local Indivisible groups all across the country. We have about 10 new local groups form every single day. So can I get some love in the chat and the emojis? Can you celebrate a few of these? I'm just going to call out a few of them in red states and blue states and purple states. We've got Henderson County, North Carolina. Ronald registered at Indivisible, Henderson County, North Carolina this week. It's just about 30 minutes south of Asheville, North Carolina, site of what is probably the most important contentious Senate fight in the country next year. We need you in North Carolina. Trent, Marion County, Indivisible, in Winfield, Alabama. This is about an hour or so north of Tuscaloosa. Were you watching what was happening in Tuscaloosa, Leah?
Oh, that Trump's speech?
His speech, and there was a big protest against his speech, massive organizing in Tuscaloosa, Alabama. So great to have you about an hour north of Tuscaloosa, Marion County, Indivisible. Trent, thanks for joining. We've got Indivisible of Chelsea, Michigan. This is about an hour west of Detroit. One of the things I like to do is just find out, where are these people and where are you organizing? This is I was particularly interested in Michigan organizing. I wonder how Indivisible Chelsea, Michigan felt about Whitmer, your governor, your Democratic governor, coming to the Oval Office and then appearing at a rally this week with Donald Trump. Wonder what you thought about that. I wonder if you're going to make your voice heard about that. I hope you do. And then I do want to just call out a couple, Indivisible Chicago Northeast and Indivisible South Portland. So one in Illinois and one in Maine. One thing that we see within the Indivisible movement is that bigger cities often have multiple indivisible groups in them. That's cool. That's great. Sometimes it makes sense to have different indivisible groups representing different parts of the city. The only thing we would recommend, do a good job coordinating with each other. That's just a best practice. We build power both individually in our community, but we aggregate that power across communities, across cities, across states sometimes. So thank you, everybody who is here. Thanks for joining. Thanks for building up your group. Leo, you want to talk about this call after I welcome our last final guests?
Sure.
I always like to, in the last few weeks, since we've met these people, I always like to welcome them to these calls. Welcome to the MAGA infiltrators. You found us. We work in the open. That's what we do. We'll discuss our plans because that's what we do in a legitimate pro-democracy movement. We've started seeing clips of these calls show up in right-wing circles, and they're often kind of breathless posts about, oh my gosh, what are they playing? Well, we're playing it in the open, and you're welcome to watch what we're doing. And for this small subset of the MAGAs who voted for Trump because you wanted lower prices of bread or eggs and you're kind of disappointed by the fascism now, welcome. You really are welcome here. This is a pro-democracy movement made up of people who are working together and supporting each other from all walks of life. We don't have to agree on everything, actually. That's okay. All we have to agree on is that Trump and Musk and the goose-stepping Republicans aren't offering what we need right now. Okay, so with that said, welcome to everybody. Leah, let's talk about this call.
Sure. All right. So after we get done with this opening, this call is going to be Q&A, both live and submitted in advance from the folks who signed up. If you are in the Zoom, we are taking questions via the question and answer function at the bottom of your toolbar. So put your questions in there. You have an upvoting function so we can make sure that we answer the most popular questions. If you are joining via the live stream, Indivisible, we'll be putting the links in the chat in the Zoom. If you are joining via the live stream, indivisible.org/links will get you signed up for everything that we are putting in the chat. This will be recorded, or rather, this is not only being recorded, but it is live streamed and it will be sent out to everyone who registered. We are going to keep doing these conversations as long as people find them useful. We are getting more and more folks every week, so we are going to keep doing them for the immediate future. And then finally, just a note on respect and support for each other. We are talking about really hard and scary stuff. I know there are people who are on this call who are incredibly personally impacted. I know we are all personally impacted by the rise of fascism, the attacks on our rights, the attacks on our jobs and services. When things are tough, it can get emotional. We ask everyone to keep the chat respectful, to keep it constructive. We are all in this together. We're going to organize together. Even if we've got differences about strategy or tactics, we're in it together and we're going to build that way.
That's right. So, Leah, do you want to talk a little bit about the May Day that we got back from a protest? Talk about like what this is, what we're doing together.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, so look, if you are on this chat, you may have already gone to your event. You may be going to your event. There are over 1,100 events nationwide with workers and immigrants showing up together to say, stop the billionaire takeover, stand with our communities. We were in downtown DC just a little while ago with a big crowd of our union and immigrant brothers and sisters, a lot of Indivisibles all over the place. That's great. We all have a common stake in this movement. Trump and Musk and his billionaire buddies are taking a wrecking ball to government, from clean air and water to vaccines to Medicaid and Social Security. They're coming for it all. They're attacking our rights, civil rights. They're attacking our labor rights. They're ripping immigrants off the streets in order to continue their divide and conquer attacks.
Can you? They're saying it's hard to hear you, Leah.
Oh,
here,
no.
Here.
Okay.
I'm moving the mic so it's a little bit closer to Leah. Okay, try that, Leah.
They know.
Let us know how it sounds.
Is that better? All right.
Okay, great.
Wonderful.
Thanks, y'all.
They know none of this is popular. They know that there will be massive backlash. That is why they are simultaneously launching this campaign of fear, of authoritarianism, of divide and conquer demagoguery. They are taking immigrants away from their families. They are taking students off the streets for exercising their free speech rights. They're doing it all to make us afraid, to cement their grasp on power. But we say no. We recognize these things are connected. we won't be afraid. We won't be divided. We rise up together to stop them. That is what May Day is about. That is what us showing up peacefully today is about. And that is what our upcoming demonstrations will be about as well. And with that, Ezra, do you want to talk about
Let's talk about it.
go.
Let's talk about it. Okay, so what comes next? What comes next, y'all? We are building a muscle right now. Okay, we're building a muscle. We are trying to demonstrate that the vast majority of this country is against what Donald Trump and Musk and congressional Republicans are bringing. And what they're bringing is, it looks like monarchy. I mean, that's what he wants to be. He wants to be a king. In America, how many kings do we have? No kings. No kings. So here, we're going to talk about No Kings Day, y'all. We're going to talk about No Kings Day. Last week on this call, we talked about what is the next big national day of protest going to be, and we had an idea. And we wanted to get your thoughts, and we wanted to talk to partners about it too. That's what we wanted to do. Now, on that call, what we talked about was June 14th, and there were a lot of reasons why June 14th made a lot of sense to us. And the response we got to y'all, there was some really good feedback and also overwhelmingly positive. Yeah, this sounds like a good idea. So we're really excited about this. So you may already know this, but let me cover the basic details. Here's the deal. June 14th is many things. It is a Saturday. Love to protest on a Saturday. Easier to get people out on a Saturday. It's a practical reason. It is Flag Day, a day to embrace patriotism, to define what we mean when we say we're defending a pluralistic democracy for all. It also happens to be Donald Trump's birthday. He's turning 79. Now, the reports are that Donald Trump is planning to celebrate his 79th birthday with a massive $100 million taxpayer-funded military parade with tanks on the street in D.C. You heard that right. A $100 million military parade with tanks on the streets in D.C. That's what Donald Trump is currently reported to be planning for his birthday on June 14th, which is Flag Day. Here's what this moment is, y'all. Here's what this moment is. This is a moment to create contrast. This is a moment for contrast. He is stealing our money. He's stealing our money from Medicaid, from Social Security, from cancer research, from schools to fund this big, lavish military parade for his birthday. He thinks he can rule like a king. But this is America. We don't do kings here. We do not do kings here. So instead, what are we going to do on No King's Day? Instead, we're going to direct our energy away from downtown DC. It's not where we're going to be. Instead, we're going to come together literally everywhere else, peacefully, joyfully, with real people in every corner of the country to reject his corruption, to reject his overreach, to reject his attacks on our services, our neighbors, our democracy. That's what we're going to do. We're going to rise up together and say just in unison, no kings. Oh, wow. We did it in unison. We didn't even practice that, y'all. Okay, so the idea here is that the story of June 14th is a story of real people coming together in communities across the country. It's the story of us reclaiming the flag of the mantle of patriotism and pluralistic democracy. This is a big tent. It's a big tent. It's open to everyone who agrees with just this simple message. Trump is not our king. And in America, political power belongs to the people. This is a celebration. It's a celebration of what America should be, what it can be, not this corrupt bullshit vision that Trump wants it to be. I want to be clear. Look, I'm talking about this from Indivisible, and Indivisible is all in for this, but it's really not just Indivisible. Next week, there's going to be a big flashy launch with everybody, a full list of partners. But I want to name some nationally who are on board for this kind of soft launch, and we wanted to give you all a heads up. Now, American Federation of Teachers, National Education Association, Black Voters Matter, Repairers of the Breach, which is Reverend Barber's group. He was just arrested praying at the Capitol in protest and in defense of the democracy recently. Incredible leader. Spoke at the DC rally as well for Hands Off. Color of Change, Public Citizen, the League of Conservation Voters. This is a partial list, but just to make clear, it ain't just us. There is a broad, big national coalition of organizations and individuals who are going to be coming in together to do this. And these events are going to be put on by you. They're going to be put on by you. We had 1,300 events nationwide for Hands Off, around 1,100 for May Day on a Thursday, which is incredible. I want to see a ton of locally led events from normal everyday people who are bringing their communities together. That's what worked for Hands Off. That's what we're going to do for No King's Day, but it's going to be bigger. It's going to be bigger. We got to make it bigger. So we're announcing it right now so you all can get a jump on things. The website, as of I think literally right now, is live, nokings.org. You can go to nokings.org right now. Indivisible leaders, you'll have an email pretty soon to register events, so you can start registering events. This will be broadly available to the public very soon too. Keep an eye on this event. It is going to develop. There are going to be more partners. There are going to be more events. There's going to be more information. We're going to keep on building. We got, what, about 6 weeks to build for it. Let's make it the biggest thing this country has seen in quite some time. How about that? Okay. Leah, that's a whole bunch. We
That's
spent
a
20
lot.
minutes on
Yeah,
intro.
we
That's
gotta get
more
to
than we normally do.
questions.
Okay,
Fun.
let's do questions. Okay, thanks everybody for bearing with us. Welcome new folks. Welcome again to the Midas team, to everybody following us from Midas. Look, great to have you. Great to be part of this big, incredible pro-democracy movement. Hey, let's have a discussion, y'all. As a reminder, you can put questions in the Zoom if you're joining from Zoom, and then you can vote on those questions. And this is a democratic process, so we're just going to answer the top questions that are coming in. You'll see Leah and me looking up. It's because the questions are on the screen right ahead. So let's go to the most asked question so far, with about 400 votes, comes from Ginny. We deserve to know what Doge is doing with our data. Their plans to build a surveillance state together with a Palantir are terrifying. What can we do to fight back? Ooh, great question, Ginny.
It's a great question, and it is terrifying. It is absolutely terrifying, and it's infuriating, right? The richest man in the world has got all of our personal data, all the data the government collects. They are trying to kludge together the different data sets across different federal agencies to create kind of the mega data set. There's a really good reason why those things are supposed to be kept separate. The government should not have this kind of power to pull all these things together, and they certainly shouldn't be taking it and putting it in the hands of private actors like Elon Musk. So 100% agree. Now, I'm going to say totally honestly, this is a situation where the thing that we can do is raise the alarm as much as possible and turn this into a salient political issue where they have to back off. There are a bunch of lawsuits going on that are moving through various stages of the courts around what is happening here. That is good. We create the public outcry, the public atmosphere in which those lawsuits can prevail and in which the Trump administration feels like they have to back off. That is what we do through our organizing. That is what we do when we press elected officials. That is what we do when we protest and rally together. That's what we do when we talk to our neighbors about what is going on and make sure that even people who maybe aren't paying as much attention as we are, that they know why this is so scary and so threatening to their lives too.
Can I just say, Leah's brilliant and all that is right. Can I just add one more thing? This political moment will end. Right now, Republicans have the House, the Senate, and the presidency. That's short term. Donald Trump is a lame dunk president. The Republican majority in the House is minuscule. We are going to get a Democratic majority in the House in what, 18 months? We are going to have power again. This is what we're building towards. Now, how are we going to use that power? It is very important that Democratic electeds right now start talking about that future point in time that is not so far away, that we are headed towards an era of accountability. I want to know that when there is a Democratic House majority, they are going to use their oversight power to investigate all the bullshit that Trump and Musk and congressional Republicans have been up to. They're going to have that power. They are going to have the House majority. They might have the Senate majority. That's important because we want that agenda come 2027. But it's also important. It's also important to send a signal to those individuals and institutions right now who are deciding whether or not to break the law. And they might think, well, Trump wants me to do it. I guess I should do it. I guess I should capitulate. I guess I should cooperate. I guess I should go along with this. They should know accountability is coming. I want that to be part of their calculus, and a way to get there is we want Democratic electeds to start talking about it. People have been mentioning Jamie Raskin in the chat. He's excellent on this. There are many other good Democratic leaders who do lean into this. We need to encourage our Democratic electeds to make that point, not in the future, not just when it comes to election season, but right now. Right now. Okay, great question, Jenny. Thanks for asking it. Let's go on to the next most asked question, a voted question. Janet says, I was heartened when DNC Chair Ken Martin announced a People's Cabinet to actively counter right-wing lies, something that's been recommended by Timothy Snyder and others. We've talked to Tim about this too. The press release came out on April 4th, but I haven't heard anything about it since. Is anything happening on that front?
Oh gosh. I am not sure. I don't know. I haven't been kept in the loop. If so, this is the kind of thing that might take some time to organize. And my general advice on this is that there's going to have to be a lot of experimentation for Democrats to figure out how they're going to get their message out, how they're going to get their story out. And we mostly want to be, We mostly want to be supportive of that kind of experimentation, of pulling things together. So I don't have an update on that specifically, but I do hope they can get it off the ground.
Yeah, I hope too. I will say I like this idea. I would like to see it executed well, and I'm not waiting for the National Democratic Party to save us from fascism.
That's right.
If you are waiting for that, you're going to have to wait quite some time. So when you see electeds or politicians who are taking the right action, great, support them. Cory Booker giving that incredible speech, Jamie Raskin going off and leading in the fight against some of this overreach and giving the whole nation a constitutional law lesson in real time. That's valuable. Maxwell Frost, Jasmine Crockett, Chris Murphy, their list goes on. There are a lot of good leaders in this fight. Bernie and AOC going and building huge crowds in red areas. This is great. Support them. But you should know nobody is going to save us unless we stand up and organize ourselves. So I hope, Martin, I hope the effort on this works. I hope the Dems get their act together and able to grab headlines. Some of the stuff they try, like Leah said, is not going to work, but it's good that they're trying. But none of what they do absolves us from the responsibility of organizing ourselves and communicating to our own community.
That's right.
Okay, so we have Jenna. So speaking of Booker, Jenna says Senator Booker does his filibuster and then a sit-in at the Capitol, but then turns around and votes for one of the nominees. Why would he do that? I genuinely don't understand. Great question, Jenna. Great question. Leah?
Well, look, if you're just joining us, we talk a lot about how resistance is a muscle you build and how we are encouraging Democrats to get their exercise in. This is not a one-time thing. This is a way of understanding the world. It is a strategy. It is a practice. We have got to encourage Democrats to really get, see the light and then keep putting it into practice. It's not a situation where we can assume that anybody's got it and they're going to continue to put the right action in every day. We got to keep them accountable. So if you're from New Jersey and you don't like to see that, call Senator Booker's office. Tell them you are disappointed. Tell them you want to see consistent opposition to Trump nominees. If you're from any other Democrats, if you're in any other Democratic senator state, call them and tell them so too, because there are a lot of Democrats who are sometimes still voting for Trump nominees, and we got to get them on program here.
I'm going to add a couple of things. One, first, I think we should celebrate where we are now compared to where we were 6 months ago, 5 months ago, 4 months ago. I've been talking to a lot of journalists about what's happened in the first 100 days. Like, what have you seen? And one of the stories of the first 100 days of this administration is Democrats circa January 2025, the dominant position of the party was Democrats should roll over and play dead. And those aren't my words. Those are James Carville's words. He wrote it in the New York Times op-ed. That was the strategic advice. Donald Trump is too popular. He is going to become less popular eventually. Democrats should not try to take up space. Let him do what he wants to do, but eventually we're going to benefit from the backlash. That was the dominant view, which is why you saw Democrats voting for Laken Riley, this bad MAGA messaging bill on immigration. It's why you saw every single Senate Democrat voting for Marco Rubio to be Secretary of State, which has been a disaster. It's why you saw Chuck Schumer cave on the surrender on the CR bill in March. But that was the early part. And what we saw as a combination of the February recess events, hundreds of them, Indivisibles and others showing up, the empty chair town halls in Republican and Democratic districts in March, and then on April 5th, the single largest protest in years and years, what you see is that's breaking through. And Democratic politicians, they're not all getting it right. I want to be clear, we do not have a unified opposition party yet, but we see them trying more and more to show, oh, I see where the people are. They want me to fight back. You see a J.B. Pritzker speech in which he just decries the do nothing Democrats and plants himself firmly on the side of the fight back Democrats. That's good. That's great. That's not where we were 3 months ago. We want to welcome people to the fight back faction of the Democratic Party. And I believe that faction is ascendant. And the do nothing Democrats, they're on the way out. They cannot hold on to their position. So Booker, along with 15 other Democrats, voting for former Senator Perdue, who is an election denier Republican, that's bad. That's bad. And we should criticize them for it. And we should say, stop doing that. But when they do stuff that's good, we should celebrate that too. It's carrots and sticks. It's carrots and sticks. And part of encouraging Democrats to find their spines is showing up on June 14th. showing them that there is massive, sustained, and building opposition to this authoritarianism.
That's right.
But great question, Jen. I appreciate it. Okay, next question from Kim. Last night, all the Republicans on the House Judiciary Committee voted to allow Trump to deport American citizens. Not that he's waiting for permission, of course. I didn't think anything else could shock me. This may/will be used against perceived enemies, resistors, etc. Can you speak to this and how we can combat the flagrant destruction of our rights? I saw, where I learned about this was on, I believe I saw it on TikTok, from members of Congress on the Democratic side talking about how they were trying to fight back against it, but the Republicans just told them to take a hike and move forward anyway through the Judiciary Committee.
Yeah. Well, so let me take a step back and say, I think we should understand a lot of things that are happening right now as part of an organized strategy to create terror among immigrant communities, but also everywhere in America, right? The entire idea of detaining and kidnapping people and imprisoning them in El Salvador. And I want to be really specific. Deporting somebody is moving them into a third party country or putting them back in the country that they came from. This is not that. This is taking people who have not been charged with any crime and putting them in a third country where they have obviously not committed any crime because they have not been there, where they are put into a torture prison to stay ostensibly forever. This is a massive human rights abuse by any possible definition. And the reason that I'm saying it, I'm starting from that point, is because I think it's really important to understand that when there are controversies about men who have not been accused of any crime being put in this torture prison, that's not an accident. That's actually part of the plan. They are trying to create terror among immigrant communities that you might be caught and taken and ripped away from your family and put into this horrible position. And they're trying to drive folks out by creating that enormous amount of fear that this horrible thing could happen to you. And then when they talk about deporting American citizens, when they talk about threatening naturalized citizens, when they stop people at the border and hold them or detain them for any period of time, that's about creating the conditions of fear in the rest of us, right? They are trying to create a situation in which immigrants are scared for themselves and the rest of us stay quiet so that because we are also penalized and made afraid. What we are doing right now, how we are organizing, is about rejecting that. It is about saying, once again, there are more of us than there are of them. Americans do not want this. You have seen, as Democrats have stood up and fought and really made a clear case about the kidnapping of Kilmar Abrego Garcia and all of these other men who have been taken and put in this prison in El Salvador. As they've made that case, it has broken through. Americans do not want this. They do not want masked agents of the state ripping people away from their families and taking them and putting them in a terrifying foreign prison. They don't want that for anyone. And it's breaking through. And so we've got to keep the pressure up. We've got to make sure that this continues to be something that they are hearing about wherever they go. I don't know if folks saw the town hall where Chuck Grassley in Iowa was getting a big earful from his constituents about Kilmar's disappearance and how they needed to see him home with his family. We got to make sure that this is everywhere because nobody wants this. Or, well, the vast majority of Americans do not want this. The vast majority of Americans believe that our rights should be respected, and we're going to make that case.
That's right. Excellent answer. So moving on to the next question, but let me just make another shout out. If you're just joining us and you're on watching us with MeidasTouch, welcome. Great to have you here. You're hearing us answer a lot of questions. These questions are coming in live on our Zoom. People are voting on them, and then we're just taking the top questions that people are voting on. So that's why we're looking up and looking at these questions and answering them. So welcome. Great to have Meidas with us. Great to have everybody else with us. Let's move on to the next question, Leah. We have Gene Scott. Oh, we answered Gene Scott's question. So it's about
this vote for the
Booker's vote for David Perdue for ambassador to China, along with 16 other Democrats. Just to note, Gene Scott, you say, am I just being unreasonable? Do you think they have an actual plan here? No, you are not being unreasonable. The reasonable thing, if you think this is a constitutional crisis, the reasonable thing is to say and announce, I will not vote for one of this man's nominees. Full stop. A more reasonable thing, I am putting a hold as a senator on every single one of this authoritarian's nominees. That is a reasonable thing to do. It is not reasonable to vote for any one of this guys. I don't care who they nominate. I don't care if they nominate Leah. I would say vote against Leah. It does not matter who they nominate.
I think there are a lot of assumptions built in that I'm accepting the nomination. And, I'd have some questions about my job portfolio.
I would too.
Really,
I would too. Yeah. But it does, the point here being, it's not about ideology. It's not even about who their nominee. This guy is openly defying court orders. This guy is jamming down the least popular policy agenda in modern American history down the throats of 340, 50 million Americans. This guy should not be supported by one Democrat, and any Republican with an ounce of integrity would tell this guy to take a hike and switch parties. So are you being unreasonable? No, you should be a senator. You would be much better than many of the clowns that are in there. So do not second guess yourself. If you believe this is a constitutional crisis, at the very least, it calls for not voting for what Trump and Musk and the Republicans want you to vote for. Misty, next question. What do we do about Homeland Security's investigations? How long have they been a division of Homeland Security? How broad authority do they have? How can we protect citizens from being terrorized by this government division that feels like a Gestapo?
This is another question, I think, focusing particularly on the vote last night, but also more generally on the intersection between the mass deportation agenda and the surveillance agenda, right? This is a government where we don't benefit from saying, oh, that's the attack on immigrants over here. That's the attack on our freedom of speech, our civil rights over there. This is actually one organized authoritarian regime that is trying to instill fear in immigrant communities while they instill fear in the rest of us to make us be quiet and stand down while they loot our government and take all the money for themselves. It's all the same story. And so fundamentally, what I would say is we gotta stand up, we gotta organize our communities, and we've got to make them debilitatingly unpopular. An authoritarian regime, their power lies on in a couple of levels. They've got direct control over relatively, over some set of things as the president, as the executive. But real power is 1,000 different people in 100,000 different institutions, either doing the things that the regime tells them or not doing the things that the regime tells them. And so we're going to need a large number of people in places that we don't know about right now, in places that whose names we might never know, to not do what the regime wants them to do, or to do something that the regime does not want them to do.
Yeah.
And what we do right now is we create the mass conditions for courage that are going to be necessary for that to happen. And that is organizing, that is talking to our neighbors, that is getting more people out to our next rally, that is showing up to our elected officials and saying, what are you doing? We need to see you fight back. That is holding our Republicans accountable for being enablers. Those are the things that collectively allow us to push the agenda.
I mean, when we say courage is contagious, I think that's fundamentally what we mean. It's that everybody is looking around to everybody else to like figure out like should I do this? Should I not do this? Should I go along? Should I not go along? I don't know. Is my neighbor doing it? Is my local leader doing it? I got to look around and figure out where I should be. That's why it's so important to be out there and do everything that Lee was talking about. We're trying to spread courage everywhere.
Everywhere we go.
Okay, next question from Dennis Lane. What's going on with 5051? I get the impression something controversial has happened. I gotta say, I think 5051 is doing awesome work. I think it's one of the most exciting things to come on the stage since Trump got elected. Legitimate grassroots organic energy out there, building real power and showing up in big ways. So like, I'm a fan. I think they're doing cool stuff.
And I think they're trying to do something really unique, right? They are trying to build decentralized power outside of, kind of like they're trying to build it in a really democratic way. Democratic movements are gonna be a little bit messy sometimes. That's okay. I really do want to say that we've worked with them closely on the hands-off protests. We hope to work with them again in all kinds of things in the future. We encourage local Indivisible groups and 5051 groups to work together where that makes sense. Fundamentally, we think this is the kind of movement where we're going to have a lot of different organizing formations who might be the right people or the right ambassadors to different groups of people, all coming together to make our voices heard together. So I'm not sure exactly what's going on in relation to this specific question, but fundamentally, this is a big movement, and we really want to make sure that we are collectively all working together.
look, real pro-democracy movements that are led by normal people on the ground, volunteering their time and energy and effort,
Yeah.
they're going to be messy sometimes. That's the
Our
reality of these.
Indivisible is messy
Yeah,
sometimes.
Indivisible
Yeah.
is all, yeah, we're messy all the time. Like that happens. That what happens when people who feel really passionate about
Yeah.
what they're doing together in their free time to try to fight for something they believe in. Like
Yeah.
that's what happens. That's okay. And
Yeah.
I think
That's right.
we should have a lot of grace with each other, y'all. This is hard. There is an authoritarian takeover of the federal government coming after us and our neighbors and our communities. And
Yeah.
I applaud anybody in this moment who says, you know what I want to do right now? I want to step up and I want to help lead the opposition to that. That is great. That is incredible. And we need more of that. So yeah, there's going to be drama along the way. There's going to be messiness along the way. That is natural. That's coalition. That's coalition building for you.
Yeah.
And we should accept that that's a real part of building something cool and powerful and that is hopefully going to save our country from this authoritarian attack.
That's all good. Yep.
Okay, great. Moving on, next question. Appreciate it. And again, if you haven't voted yet for questions, you can right above. There is a chat function in the let's see, in the it says Q&A in the Zoom. You put your question there, and then you go and you vote, and then we take the top voted questions. That's how this goes. We have Kristen Barrett says, I know Trump's poll numbers are bad, but I'm worried about being in the same bubble I think I was in 2024 election. His approval rating was still 44% after all, which is higher than Biden's lowest. I know, give it time. That fact worries me for future elections, for having enough people to stand up to fascism, etc. Am I wrong to think being underwater by 12 points is nowhere near where we should be and to be a little scared by that? This is such a great question, Kristen. I do really appreciate it. And you're hitting on a fundamental difference in the theory of change between us, I believe, and the do nothing Democrats who would argue, well, eventually he'll just become naturally unpopular and then it will all be fine. Leah, do you want to take a first shot at the answer to Trump's approval rating?
Sure. So first, I do just want to name, because you say, oh, I was in this bubble before the 2024 election. I want to be really honest. It may have felt, I know it felt for me personally like it would be on some level impossible for Trump to be reelected. And also, when you looked at the polls right up until the 2024 election, things were neck and neck. So I do want to name, yes, there's a little bit of an overperformance on Trump's side, but it was well within the margin of error. It was a close election heading in. And so I do think that we should be real that there is some variation in the polls, right? Like we've seen some funky things happening with overcorrection or overperformance or underperformance, but they're not, 10 points off, right? We have definitely seen a significant drop in his approval ratings over the last 100 days. We have seen a lot of people who either voted for Trump or who didn't vote at all shifting into the full-blown disapproval column. So I think I want to just start with that as I move into the next piece. The next thing I think I would say is we're real that there is a percentage of the country, we're going to call it, somewhere between 30 and 35% of the country that is pretty far down the right wing MAGA rabbit hole. And we are not reaching those people on any immediate time frame. We're not trying to reach them for the next election. I love them. I am related to some of them. And also, I know that if I'm going to spend an hour of my time, I'm going to try and target somebody who was disengaged and didn't bother to vote in 2024, or somebody who maybe they voted for Trump because they were just dissatisfied with the status quo, but isn't, all the way down the Fox News right-wing rabbit hole. There are this population of people who were disengaged, who did not bother to vote, or people who were fundamentally frustrated with the status quo and went for Trump as the change candidate. And those are the places where it looks like we are seeing movement right now. And those are the places where we think we can make inroads. And so when we think about our own messaging, when we think about our own framing and the outreach and the things that we really lean into when we talk to people, we're thinking about how do we pull those people in, right? When we did Hands Off, the thinking was, let's construct a story about how they collectively, Donald Trump, Elon Musk, how they are out of control, how they are taking the things that we care about, how they are doing it to benefit themselves. A story that allows anybody to plug in, no matter what you personally are upset about, that story is probably going to reflect you. And then let's push it out with as many people in as many places as we can. Similarly, when we talk about No Kings, that's a pretty low barrier to entry. This is open to anyone who thinks that Trump has gone too far. We are pulling everybody in. So what I would say is, yes, the polls are like not 100% accurate, but we are seeing movement. we can do more. We think there are people who we can still get. We're not trying to get everyone, not for the next election, but we think there are a lot of people who are open to the simple messages. You are being harmed so that they can benefit. He's gone too far.
I just 1,000% agree with that. And I would underline this is why it's so important to build a unified opposition party. This is why we want to align Democrats in the fight back posture. Because if you align in the fight back posture, when it comes to elections, you've got a contrast. You've got a clear contrast. There's no like, well, we don't totally agree with Trump, but we wanted to work with him on infrastructure, so we gave him votes, or we voted for David Perdue because we thought that was good. The fact that every single Democrat voted for Marco Rubio, for instance, that's problematic because then it gives cover to Marco Rubio to do a lot of the damage that he's doing. But if we have every single Democrat, for instance, which I think we can achieve, line up against this bad reconciliation bill that is coming down that cuts somewhere between what 500 billion and $1.5 trillion from Medicaid and gives big tax cuts to billionaires. If we get every single Democrat to fight back against that, then the Republicans own it. They own it. And they might pass it. We might kill it. They might pass it. If they pass it, they have to own that headed into the next election. We need a unified opposition party, a no kings party against the pro kings party. That's what we need. Because if the option is you get a king or you don't get a king, I think we're going to win. I think we're going to win because Americans don't want kings. Next question. Great question, Kristen. Next question comes from Gene. Let's put pressure on American companies that manufacture in El Salvador. Boycott all products made in El Salvador. Such products include clothing, mattresses, food, and more. So check tags and packages and avoid buying those marked quote unquote made in El Salvador. Companies that manufacture in El Salvador includes Hanes, Fruit of the Loom, Gildan, Diana, Capri, Indofoam, Bon Appetit. Man, you've got a lot of this, Gene. Bon Appetit, and many more. Contact the heads of companies manufacturing in El Salvador, such as Hanes and Fruit of the Loom. Urge them to put pressure on Salvadoran government to do the right thing. Leah, thoughts on boycotts? Thoughts on this kind of economic pressure?
Look, I think economic pressure, economic non-cooperation, withdrawing our dollars from companies that are in support of some of the heinous acts of this regime, that all absolutely makes sense. I want to shout out, there are some Indivisible groups who have been campaigning around Avelo Airlines, which is the airline that is doing the deportation flights to El Salvador. There have been some really inspired protests of those folks. They are also a commercial airline, so making sure everybody knows. And you can have one of those businesses, but you can't have people giving you their tax or their consumer dollars. That's great. There's an ongoing boycott of Target that has been around Target's compliance on DEI policies, the way that they rolled back basically all of their DEI.
Really effective too.
Yeah, it's a super effective boycott. And we personally are not spending our dollars at Target. Now, Indivisible historically has not done a ton of corporate campaigning. There are people who have like a lot more expertise specifically in this issue that really kind of figure out how do you target, how do you do the really strategic work of identifying, how do you target? Yeah, exactly. No pun intended. How do you do the really strategic work of designing a boycott that really hits the company and compels them to do the thing that you want them to do? We try to look at the folks who are doing that rather than, be the folks who run every individual aspect of the work. But I would also broaden it, and I would ask you to think about the different places in your life where you have an institution that you are in contact with, that you are in relationship with, that could do the right thing or could do the wrong thing. I gave this example last week, but right now there is an active fight between Donald Trump and higher education institutions in this country. He has been attacking, he forced Columbia into compliance. He went after Harvard. Harvard said, no, we're not going to accept your ridiculous demands. They sued him back. There has been a new push by a bunch of different educational institutions to stand with Harvard, to stand for some basic principles around freedom of speech and freedom of higher educational institutions. You want to make sure that your institution, wherever you graduated from, or if you are a student, wherever you currently are, you want to make sure they're on the right side of things. So you're an alumni. Do you give them money? Have you called them and asked them whether they've put out a statement of solidarity? Find out, because that's the kind of pressure on all the different places that you are in relationship with in society that can make a big difference in how far Donald Trump can get.
Very interested. Like there are a lot of college reunions coming up, this month and next month.
Yes.
If you are going to a college reunion, that might be a good opportunity to organize a lot of other alums to either celebrate the fact that your institution, your higher education institution, is indeed fighting back, or push in some way. Take advantage of the moment. I also want to point out that one set of institutions that are caving and capitulating are media institutions. That's not true of Midas, that is broadcasting this. There are other good independent news organizations that should be supported in this moment. Find the ones that you trust and support them. Either pay for their services or subscribe or convince your family and friends to subscribe. We cannot rely on the traditional forms of media to get us through. We need to be supporting these new emerging media institutions. It's one of the reasons why we're thrilled that Midas is with us today. So please join up. Let's see. We're going to move on to the next question. Great question, Jane, and great list of boycott options. So John asks, I want us to send Congress a citizens whistleblower complaint, an actual signature doc already drafted with hopefully over 1 million signatures directed at Congress and committees for failing to do their job, to be guardrails and equal branch of government to keep the executive branch in check. This complaint reads like the 2019 House impeachment doc, but with a longer list of crimes and misdemeanors and signed by all citizens like us, is a different angle than a letter or public demonstration and adds a new line of attack that is not being used, never been used, a first of its kind. I would really like Indivisible to join with other similar orgs, Common Cause, Democracy Now, to gather mass signature counts. Consider this. I'm a citizen, a whistleblower, and so are you, and you, and you. Yeah, thoughts on this tactic? I love tactical ideas. It's important to discuss what tactics can work.
Yeah. So here's what I would say. When we're contacting Congress and we're trying to put pressure on Congress, one of our very fundamental precepts is that pressure from an individual member of Congress's constituents matters a lot more than general pressure from outside, right? And that is for a very simple reason. It is because if you are a member of Congress, the way that you are getting reelected next year is the votes of the people in your district and the conditions in your district, whether people like you or do not like you. And so they care about 1,000 times more about stuff that happens in their district or in their state than they do about kind of the general positions of other people around the country. And so one of the reasons why we really emphasize call your own member of Congress versus kind of like send one big list of people to everyone in Congress is because we want every individual member of Congress to know exactly how much pressure there is specifically in their district from their voters coming at them. And so I understand the idea. I think that it's kind of a cool new way to try and get some attention on the sheer volume and breadth of the crimes that Trump is committing, the number of unconstitutional things he's doing. But I really want to encourage us to think about tactics that apply that pressure to our own elected officials, because that is the way we're going to get a lot of impact.
Great. David Hammer asks, what plans does Indivisible have for protesting on July 4th in Washington, D.C.? My family and friends are flying into California or from California on July 1st to protest on the 4th. Indivisible needs to plan and lead the protest. Leah.
Oh, we just announced a protest. Give us a minute. So the short version is we are thinking about what creative actions can happen on July 4th. I do want to call out that July 4th is often a challenging date to plan mass actions around, and that's for some very simple reasons. One, lots of people are traveling. People are going all over the place. They're seeing families. They're doing barbecues, so you lose some of your organizers because they've got lives as well. And so that makes it a little bit harder. And then it's also often competing with other July 4th themed stuff. So a lot of times what we actually see work really well is thinking about what is happening in your community that's July 4th themed, and are you able to get in there and use it to get the word out, right? So we have seen some incredibly effective bird dogging of politicians at July 4th parades, right? They show up, they go to the parade, someone says, what the hell is happening with cuts to Medicaid? And they get it on film. And then a lot of people see it after that, right? Or people have their own float in their local town parade, and they have a float that is expressing our values, that is expressing the threat that we're facing, that is getting the word out with flyers that they're passing out along the way. There are a lot of different creative things that people can do. We're thinking about digital actions that we could all do together. There's a lot of creative stuff people can do around the 4th of July, because it is a crucial moment for us to reassert that it's our values that are American values, and that whatever they're doing here, this is not what America should stand for. But probably it's not going to be us planning a big mass mobilization in DC just on the basis of timing and constraints and all that's going on.
I just want to remind people, 8 years ago, we were in the midst of a fight to save the Affordable Care Act. Mitch McConnell, it's almost a quaint villain at this point, but Mitch McConnell was trying to steamroll through a repeal of the Affordable Care Act. They wanted to kill it. And we used the parades during the July 4th recess to the parades during the July 4th recess to put pressure on people like Susan Collins. So people showed up at a parade with Susan Collins and said, you better vote against this repeal of the Affordable Care Act. And then Susan Collins actually voted with us. So Lisa Murkowski, Susan Collins, other Republicans who are up next year, if they're showing up in public at a July 4th parade because they think that they can just get some applause for being in public, that is a great opportunity to show up and put pressure on them. I would love to see it. Next question, and we're running out of time. So Nancy, Nancy and then Cassandra. Nancy says, I agreed with Ezra's rant a couple meetings ago about Schumer needing to go now. I do rant sometimes that way. How do we push for this now? Specifically, I think it's important to get moving on this, a fresh start with someone younger and willing to push who believes we're in a constitutional crisis now. Look, Indivisible's on the record on this. 91% of Indivisible leaders voted that Chuck Schumer should step down from leadership. He's got a 17% approval rating. We don't think he's the right guy to be leading the opposition right now. And also, look, it's up to senators at this point. It's up to senators. If you want your Democratic senator to call for him to step down, you got to ask them. That is the pathway. There's no other secret way to do it. That's what you got to do. So it really is up to folks to put that pressure if they want to see it. Anything else on that? Let's go to Cassandra. Wyckoff says, should we be concerned about Trump declaring martial law based on this week's EO?
I'm torn around any question that asks, should we be concerned? Because the answer is pretty much always yes, and you don't even need to fill out the rest of the question. But here's what I would say. I think that it's been pretty clear across a lot of different fronts that Donald Trump is trying to lay the groundwork for a crackdown on protest, for a crackdown on dissent, for targeting of civil society institutions, for targeting of really basically any alternate source of power in American society, because fundamentally they want to consolidate it under themselves. I don't know that any individual executive order necessarily, like the EO that came out this week, is damaging and alarming and frightening. And also it's part of an overall picture that is pretty clear, which is that they're aiming for an eventual crackdown. We've seen the same thing with the debates around the invocation of the Insurrection Act. The best thing that we do is that we build the biggest and boldest and most visible popular opposition everywhere in this country, that we are in this race where we are trying to build that before they are able to consolidate their power. We want to make them debilitatingly unpopular so that they cannot do the kinds of things that they want to do. And again, that is the work we are doing. When we talk to our neighbors, when we push our politicians, when we show up and protest, we are pulling more people along with us so that we create the conditions in which that will backfire if they try.
Indeed, that's the role we're trying to play right now. So Valerie asks, is the Democratic Party or left-leaning think tanks working on a Project 2027, a playbook for when we take back Congress? Our representatives need to hit the ground running, just as MAGA did with the guidance provided by Project 2025.
It's a great question. I am aware of at least a couple of different think tanks that are out there that are working on various versions of a policy agenda, an agenda for 2027, and also an agenda for 2029, right? When we hopefully get a transition to a new president. I do think it's worth noting, Project 2025 is a little bit of a messy thing because it's obviously been an extremely effective planning process, but it was also like a pretty big political mess for them for about a year and a half. So when we talk about it, I think we should remember we're talking about something that has an approval rating that is, how high was it?
I think it's somewhere between toenail fungus and cockroaches,
right,
is where Project 2025 is in terms of popularity.
So now, of course, the big difference is that our agenda is popular, right? Like, we are behind ideas that are good and people like them when they hear them, and we want to be persuasive about how we do it. But I just want to be a little careful about saying, oh, it's our Project 2025, because their Project 2025, people hate that thing. Like, they really don't like it. They didn't like it during the election, and they like it even less now that it is in the process of being put into action.
I think that's right. I also would say right now, the key political question of the moment that we're in right now is, do you support democracy or do you support authoritarianism? That is the decision in front of us. The hard political truth for all of us is that we lost the White House, the Senate, and the House. So agenda setting power is with the orange guy with tiny hands and what he decides in the morning to talk about, to rant about, to post on Truth Social, and to direct his foot soldiers to implement. And the question in front of us and the question in front of institutions and the questions in front of leaders is yes or no. Do we go along with it or do we fight back? And that no movement is really important. I am very proud that for April 5th, the hands off protest, everybody from DSA to Never Trump Republicans to Matt Iglesias to traditional Democrats, basically an ideologically diverse spectrum of the electorate was able to say, well, no, hands off. I'm against this. That's good. When you look at effective anti-authoritarian movements in other parts of the world or throughout American history, like in the Deep South, the thing that is most effective, you listen to Erica Chenoweth, you listen to Tim Snyder, you listen to Maria Stephan, you listen to Heather Cox Richardson, these experts in authoritarianism. What they say is that the way to defeat the authoritarianism is not to align right now on what is the agenda that everybody can agree on. It's instead to align on they don't agree with that. We are against that. Fascism, bad. Authoritarianism, bad. Disappearing American citizens, bad. Deporting American citizens, bad. Cutting taxes for billionaires, bad. We can align a broad swath of the electorate on that. That does not absolve us from the need to do what Valerie is talking about here, have a proactive agenda.
Right.
We should be working on that. But I do want to say this is a major strategic belief that we have right now, which is we've got to organize an opposition movement that is unified and ideologically diverse,
Right.
which means there are going to be people, if you are successful, there are going to be people who come to your meeting, who come to your protest, who you strongly disagree with on many policy issues. And that is a feature, not a bug, of the organizing we are all doing right now. They are welcome. They should be welcome. Because if we're going to defeat these authoritarians, we have to organize with people who do not fully agree with us on what we're going to do once the fascists are out of power. Leah, I'm seeing it's 4:02. We've got to close up pretty soon.
We do, we do.
Any closing comments for the folks from Meidas and for everybody joining on the Zoom?
Just appreciation. I was talking with somebody who was talking about how democracy movements organize and how they hold together. And part of it is about ritual and part of it is about community. And what I think we create with this space, or what we try to create with this space, is a community for everyone who feels like maybe they're going crazy to come together and to say, oh no, actually, there are so many of us. There are people all over the country, people who have faced real harm from this administration, people who can't sleep at night thinking about the harm that is coming to others from this administration, who want to organize, who want to fight back, who want to do it together. That is what this space is about. It's about having the tools and the strategies and the connections to do that effectively. And everybody who's here, you took an hour out of your Thursday to make that happen. And I know that that's not the only thing that you are doing in your own life. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. This has been yet another edition of What's the Plan with Leah and Ezra. I will catch you all back here at 3 p.m. Eastern Time next Thursday. And until then, I hope to see you in the streets. Good luck on the rest of your May Day protesters. West Coast, I'm looking at you. We want to see those pictures and videos.